Alright, so we are going to kind of recap from all the different presentations, the 13 colonies, and I have a note sheet that I want you to take the notes on. So this is just an image of the 13 colonies, and also this image we will discuss in a little bit with the American Revolution what this all is, but this is the 13 colonies. Alright, so let's start off with the New England colonies. So Massachusetts was founded in 1629, and this is both Massachusetts. I know today this is only Massachusetts, and this is the state of Maine, but at the time they were both part of the Massachusetts colony. Next we have New Hampshire, which was founded in 1679, so it's the green one right there. Then we have Connecticut, which was founded in 1639, the purple one right there. And then the tiny bit one, Rhode Island, is founded in 1636. And this is the smallest state in the United States. So as you can see, you can barely see it on the map. Alright. So reasons why people wanted to settle in the New England colonies, or if I say the northern colonies, it's both the same thing. If I say New England, northern, same exact thing. So reasons why they wanted to settle was English colonists were in search of religious freedom, and to kind of give you a backstory on that, Henry VIII broke away from the Roman Catholic Church, and he created this new group, and they were called the Protestants. And the Protestants were persecuted, so they wanted to come over to the 13 colonies, specifically New England colonies, to not be persecuted anymore. And because they were taking this religious journey, a lot of them were called pilgrims. They were also in search of jobs because of the economic hardship in England, and all this movement to the northern colonies, this time here was known as the Great Migration. Alright, so economy and impact on natives. So let's look at the economy first. There is subsistence farming, so this is producing enough to meet the needs of their families with a little left over to sell. So, for example, where I live, there is a couple farms around where I live, and they have, they make, they grow different crops like corn, tomatoes, zucchini. So they obviously are keeping some of the food for themselves, but then they also have little small farm stands where they sell whatever they have left over. So let's say, I know in McHenry, right near the a drive-in movie theater, there's a little farm stand there. So that family obviously produces, food for themselves, but then they have that farm stand where they could sell and make a little money off of that leftover crops. There's also shipbuilding, lumber, and fishing. So these were huge industries as well. And to go off this assistant farming, we'll talk about in the southern colonies how farming was kind of like their main source of making money and economy, but here, very small thing. Alright, the impact on natives. So we have natives traded furs with settlers, but conflicts eventually rose. So settlers moved on to native lands. Obviously, if your colony is growing, the population, you need to spread out a little more. So they started spreading out to the Native American lands, and this was not good at all. Also, settlers would steal stuff from the Native Americans, and eventually the Native Americans waged war against the settlers, and this was known at the time as King Philip's War, and this lasted about 14 months. And then the natives did lose the war. And then I want you to think about why they lost the war. What is different? How did settlers maybe have an advantage over Native Americans? Think about the weapons they might have used. So this is an image of King Philip's War I have right there, and that's the image for economy. So the middle colonies. We'll start off with New York. It was founded in 1691, so right over here. So we have our New England colonies bordering right here. And then we have our southern colonies right here. So with New York is the northernmost middle colony. And then we have New Jersey, which is right here. And then we have Pennsylvania, which is right over here. 1682 is when that was founded. And then, last but not least, we have Delaware, which was right here, founded in 1701. So New York and Pennsylvania were first founded, and then Delaware and New Jersey. So reasons why people wanted to settle in the middle colonies. So one reason why the Dutch wanted to settle in the middle colonies was because of land grants. And remember when I said if people paid their way over to the colonies, they would get X amount of land. So these people, the landowners who received the land grants, were called patroons, and this is an image of one. And then also another reason why people wanted to settle, specifically the Quakers, which is another religious group, they were in search of religious freedom since they had also been persecuted in England. And they specifically settled in the colony of Pennsylvania and some in Delaware. And this gave them a chance to put their Quaker ideals into practice. And this is an image of the Quakers. So if you think of Quaker oatmeal, there's somebody we'll talk about in just a little bit that is kind of like the representative for that. So the middle colonies, compared to New England and its other colonies, had a wide, diverse population. So English was the largest population that was there, but we also have German, Dutch, Scottish, Africans, Irish, Scottish, Welsh, Swedish, and a little bit of French. Okay, so economy and impact on natives. So specifically with economy, we have cash crops. So these were crops that could be sold easily in markets in the colonies and overseas. So specifically big cash crops were wheat, also in the southern economy, kind of like tobacco and indigo. They could make a lot of money quickly off of those crops. And the people in England wanted those things. So wheat and livestock were also sent for shipment to New York City and Philadelphia. So as we see here, also shipping was a big deal in the middle colonies. Other industries included carpentry, lumber, and iron. Okay, so the impact on natives. So William Penn, he was one of the leaders for the Quakers. And remember how I was saying like Quaker oatmeal? He's the guy on Quaker oatmeal today. But he believed that the land belonged to Native Americans in Pennsylvania and settlers should pay for it. And then he also negotiated treaties with Native Americans. So he was one of the people that opposed to the use of war or violence to settle disputes. So he was known as a pacifist. And here's a picture of the Quakers and the natives, and then this is for the economy. Alright, so now we're going to move on to the southern colonies. So first we have Maryland. And Maryland was founded in 1634. So we have the middle colonies that are above us. Yep. It won't let me draw the L. Okay, there we go. And then below us, we have Florida, but this was actually owned by Spain at the time. So we got our Maryland, and then next, Virginia was founded in 1607. We got North Carolina in 1663. And then we got South Carolina in 1729, and then Georgia, which was the last to be settled in 1733. So remember, with Virginia and North Carolina, we were talking about with Virginia, Jamestown settlement is here. And then we also have with North Carolina, remember Roanoke was a little island off of North Carolina. So those were two of the first southern colonies. Alright, so reasons why people wanted to settle in the southern colonies. So many wanted to settle in this region because of the land. And this is when we're going to talk about plantations. So Englishmen started large one-crop farms called plantations. So this is what is known as a plantation house. So this is where the owners lived. And then here's a picture of a plantation and different crops. And usually they had multiple buildings on a plantation. So they had where the owners lived. They had where the slaves lived. So the economy and the impact on natives. So the economy was large one-crop farms, so specifically tobacco, rice, and indigo. And eventually, southern United States would be known for also cotton. But we haven't gotten to that point in history yet. And then the impact on natives, as the colonies grew, more settlers moved to the west onto Native American lands. So they kept on pushing out the natives. They made a deal with natives in exchange for a large piece of land. Settlers would not move further, and they were like, no, if we get this land, we won't bother you. But eventually, that didn't really happen, and there was attacks on Native American villages. And in 1676, a man named Nathaniel Bacon led an attack on a Native American villages on Jamestown, and this was known as Bacon's Rebellion. So here's an image of that, Bacon's Rebellion, and then this is a picture of the different things in the southern economy. Alright, so now we're going to talk about slavery. Slavery started in 1789, and initially slavery came from West Africa, and it was developed from slave traders from Arab lands. So initially there were slaves in Africa, and then they brought them over to the Americas because they needed lots of people to work on those large plantations because they had so much crops and not enough people to do the farming. So then some slaves would work to find gold in mines, and others on farm fields. And it developed in the colonies because as farmers, it was hard to work, to do all the work. And then we have the Middle Passage, and the Middle Passage was a trip across the Atlantic Ocean from Africa to the Americas. And then we have triangle trade, which is a trade route between the three destinations, so Europe, Africa, and the colonies. And there's pictures on the next couple slides that I will show you. Okay, so the Middle Passage, like I said, it was a trip across the sea. So as you could see, this is how slaves